Office of National Statistics data, which covers the week to the 7th of January, and so it does have a time lag associated with it, reinforces this more stable and positive assessment. It indicated that the number of people with COVID in that week, around 1 in 20, was broadly the same as in the previous week. So taking all of this into account and triangulating the various sources of data allows us to say with some confidence that the...
What was that? What the fuck was that? Oh, let me see that again.
Triangulating the into account and triangulating the variant account and triangulating the and triangulate.
Oh, that head Bob something else. Oh, triangulating. Anyway.
Piece of data allows us to say with some confidence that the rise in cases driven by Omicron peaked in the first week of January and that we are now on the downward slope of this wave of cases. This assessment is also reflected in the data on hospital admissions, hospital occupancy. The number of patients in hospital at any given time with COVID is higher than it was 7 days ago, increasing from 1,479 to 1,546 today. However, the increase of 67 is significantly smaller than it was in the previous 7 days. And triangulating the various...
Well, so this won't be a relatively long video. I've got one other video that I want to put up after this, and then might be done for a wee brief period of time in terms of uploading, but I'm not really going to repeat the multitude of things that I said in the last video, because funnily enough she repeats herself in regards to the speech she gave last week or 2 weeks ago, her COVID statement, and she's pretty much repeating the exact same shit in this statement, with things such as pretending that the rules that were implemented and the behavioural change from the public is partly, if not the main reason, as well as boosters, as to why the big bad Omicron, it wasn't so big and bad after all, didn't reach the predicted levels. This is her way, of course, from obfuscating from the truth, because the reality of the matter is, if you compare Scotland to England, there wasn't really much of a difference in terms of cases and hospitalisations, etc. The only difference being, of course, between the two countries was that Thin Lips decided to implement rules, whereas England didn't. So her way of trying to pretend that her rules were somewhat justified, she has to go on the defensive and completely act oblivious to the reality of the matter that everywhere that Omicron, the variant, the big bad variant, seems to be, it seems to be the case that it's relatively tame and mild in comparison to previous variants. But oh no, we cannot be having that here in Rainbow Unicorn Land. We had to pretend that Nicola Thin Lips was correct in what she did and implement some fucking rules. You know, and of course, don't forget those boosters. They're totally responsible for why barely anybody's in hospital. Oh yeah, nothing to do with it being a bad cold in terms of similarity. But there was two fundamental things, as well as, well, as I say, she repeated so much of the same shit that she does in all her other speeches. You're not verbatim at times. I'm sure it's my phone. Some of the things that gets posed to her defence, of course, if it's not the plain party politics bullshit, it's comparing Scotland to the rest of the UK as a means to say that Scotland's doing better. The classic one in these cases is the funding that businesses are getting in Scotland. Of course, she says that the rest of the UK isn't getting, or England isn't getting funding for their businesses, whereas Scotland is. Yeah, but the only reason funding is being made available is because Thin Lips decided to implement fucking rules and close down businesses, etc. during the winter period. Anyhow, that's here nor there. So yeah, I'll let these clips speak for themselves, and catch you in the next one.
To put on record again today my thanks to people across the country of vaccines. At this stage of the vaccination programme, we continue to offer boosters and also to implement the latest advice from the JCVI. Just before Christmas, the JCVI recommended that booster jags should be offered to 16 and 17-year-olds 12 weeks after their second jags. So any 16 or 17-year-old who had a second jag 12 weeks or more ago, or who is just approaching that point, can now book a booster appointment online through NHS Inform. They can also turn up at a drop-in centre and get a booster there. In addition, second doses of the vaccine are now available for 12 to 15-year-olds who had a first dose at least 12 weeks previously. Again, appointments can be booked online. Alternatively, young people can choose to go to a drop-in centre, and parents and carers are, of course, welcome to attend with them. So far, the JCVI has recommended that booster jags should be offered only to those 12 to 15-year-olds at particular clinical risk from COVID. Any 12 to 15-year-old in that position will receive a letter inviting them for a booster 12 weeks after their last primary dose. There is no need to book an appointment. And finally, 5 to 11-year-olds with specific medical conditions that put them at greater risk from COVID will be invited for their first vaccination from this week onwards. Again, let me stress they will be contacted directly. There is no need for them, or more appropriately, their parents or carers, to book online. In due course, 5 to 11-year-olds who are household contacts of people with immune suppression will also be invited to receive vaccination. And of course, we stand ready to quickly implement any updated advice from the JCVI about vaccinating all 5 to 11-year-olds. There are good reasons why the JCVI has given different advice for different age groups, but I realise it can be confusing. So the NHS Inform website now has a self-help guide for parents, carers and children, setting out what young people need to do to get vaccinated and when they can do it. If you can't get online, you can also get this information by phoning the vaccination hotline on 0800 030 8013. That's 0800 030 8013. Now, the final point I want to make relates to vaccinations for adults. Scotland has achieved very high rates of vaccination. We are the most vaccinated part of the UK in terms of first, second, third and booster doses. But there are still more than 600,000 people over the age of 18 who are eligible for a booster but haven't yet had it, and there are hundreds of thousands more who have not yet had a first or second dose. So I would encourage anyone who falls into one of these categories to make an appointment as soon as possible or go to a drop-in clinic. There is plenty of capacity and you will be made welcome. The latest available data, adjusted for age, shows that someone not fully vaccinated is at least 4 times more likely to require hospital treatment than someone who has had a booster or third dose. And although being fully vaccinated doesn't eradicate the risk for any of us of getting COVID, it does reduce that risk, and therefore it also reduces the risk of us passing it on to others. If you choose, therefore, without good reason, not to be fully vaccinated, you are putting your own and others' lives at unnecessary risk. Choose, therefore, without good reason, not to be fully vaccinated, you are putting your own and others' lives at unnecessary risk. So if you haven't had a booster or third jab yet, please come forward as soon as possible. And if you haven't had a first or second dose yet, please do so without delay. It is never too late to get the COVID vaccines and to start getting the protection that these vaccines do offer.
Without good reason. Again, acting totally oblivious to all the adverse reactions that many people have had across society. You know, heart problems being a major issue, point of concern. Can't talk about that though. No, because the thin lip boot will just continue to read scripts, pretend that there's absolutely nothing wrong with said vaccines whatsoever. Advocate for them to no end and imply that if you do not participate in the vaccination programme, then you are by default irresponsible, selfish, etc, etc. No good reason. Go and... oh, fucking... As I said, it's just a repeat of what she said last week and the week prior to that. It's the same shit every fucking time she takes to the podium. But again, as well, the mentioning of targeting or waiting on the advice to change the green light to be given in order to vaccinate 5 to 11-year-olds. Oh, and she'll be ready and waiting as quickly as possible. Said with such a plum, as if this is a good thing. Anyhow, I know I said I wouldn't speak again, but I had to say that.
Parliament to welcome Ms Maguire back.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I was hoping to slip in quietly, but thank you anyway. On Saturday, NHS Ayrshire and Arran held a drop-in vaccination clinic for pregnant women and women who'd recently delivered their baby at Ayrshire Maternity Unit, a very welcome initiative. It's crucial that women looking to conceive, including those accessing specialist IVF treatment, are also provided with timely information and advice on vaccination and how this might impact their hopes of conceiving. An example of where this didn't happen was raised with me recently. Those involved were left devastated. What action is the Scottish Government taking to ensure that women looking to conceive and those providing their healthcare are kept properly informed about the importance of vaccinations?
First Minister.
Thank you, President Officer. Can I also say how brilliant it is to have Ruth Maguire back with us as a friend, a colleague, indeed the MSP from my hometown. It's absolutely brilliant to see her looking so well and back here in Parliament. COVID, and she raises a really important issue. COVID continues, and I think it's important to stress this, to pose a serious risk to unvaccinated pregnant women and their babies. Data from Public Health Scotland shows that 98% of pregnant women with COVID who required intensive care in Scotland were unvaccinated. A decision was therefore taken by ministers to temporarily defer fertility treatment for women who are not fully vaccinated. I fully understand that undergoing fertility treatment is an emotional experience for those involved. Treatment centres are providing counselling to those women who want to discuss vaccination in more detail and are in touch with patients to provide further information on treatment and vaccination. Public Health Scotland has also produced information leaflets and online information encouraging vaccine uptake amongst pregnant women, and additional guidance on fertility and vaccination can be found on our Parent Club and NHS Inform websites.
Coercion. And as previously mentioned, the blatant obfuscation of truth, the blatant pretending to be oblivious to what's happening around us in regards to adverse reactions. And I'm not for 1 minute saying that the investigation that was triggered into the spike in newborn deaths in Scotland is vaccination related. But one thing that has come out since December time is the fact that they're claiming that it's nothing to do with COVID per se. There's nothing really to suggest that vaccinations didn't play a role. So, until it's ruled out completely, and that's depending on whether or not the investigation is in fact independent and legitimate, but until it's ruled out completely, I wouldn't be coercing pregnant women to get vaccinated. But that's fundamental, apparently. It's fucking disgusting.